Um, so you, like we mentioned, you grew up in Bartlesville, and then you moved to Baton Rouge for a couple of years, which is a little bit different
Yes,
than Oklahoma, I would imagine, right?
yeah. You want to hear how I got there?
Yeah, I would love that.
Well, the all-girl band, we went through several changes. The all-girl band from Bartlesville broke up, and then I joined a all-girl band from Tulsa. And this band actually, we went on the road. So we had a gig at the Crazy Horse in Birmingham, Alabama, and we met a band called the War Babies from Baton Rouge. They were playing in Birmingham, and they came over to see us. Just that they had never heard of an all-girl band before, and they flipped over us and they said, "Hey, you need to come back to Baton Rouge with us because we've got a booking agent and he can keep you booked at the fraternity houses." It was right before Christmas of whatever it was, 1971 or something like that. Okay. And so they were in an old school bus that was painted psychedelic, like the Partridge Family. And we were in an international harvester
Oh my
truck
gosh.
that I had painted the hood. Oh my God. The grill I made into this big set of lips, this big smile, and then two eyes on the hood of it. And then it had like vines and stuff. I'm sorry about that. Um, but anyway, so some of the gals rode in their bus, some of them rode in our international harvester, and we all went back to Baton Rouge. And the guitar player, Courtney Westbrook, said, "Well, you can stay. I have it. You guys can all sleep on the floor in my apartment." He had a real nice apartment that looked out over a lake, and I'm thinking, and he's a musician. He must have come from money. Anyway, to cut to the chase, we all went back to Baton Rouge, crashed on his floor. The next morning, like there's a knock, knock, knock on his door. It was his girlfriend. He had a hard time explaining an apartment full of hippie girls sleeping on his floor. Anyway, they started Mid American Artists in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They had a studio. Jim Brown and Lynn Orso and Danny Farragon, they booked us immediately at all these fraternity houses. Of course, we weren't making very much money. And I lived in Baton Rouge for 2 years. And the guitar player, well, a band called Swan Fox just happened to be looking for a keyboard player. And Louis Anderson was the leader of that band. And I joined Swan Fox.
Hmm.
And that's when the all girl band, we went back to Oklahoma for Christmas. We broke up. I went back to Baton Rouge and I started playing with Swamp Fox.
And so Lewis ended up being kind of a big impact on your career as well, because you guys, a couple years after meeting and being with Swamp Fox, you guys move out to L.A. And that's when
Yeah,
things really started taking hold for you in the music business. Things got more serious for you in L.A., right?
yes, they did. Lewis and Lynn Orso in Baton Rouge said, when you get out to LA, call this guy named Kim Fowley.
Right.
And he gave us Kim Fowley's name and number. He said he's sort of weird, but he knows everybody. So we called Kim Fowley, and we were just like, we were renting a house with like four other hippies. And Kim Valley shows up at our door, and it was like 95 degrees, and he's in a full length rabbit coat and full makeup on his face. And he said, I'm starving." And then he said, "Bitch," the word bitch. "I'm starving, bitch. Can you cook?"
Wow.
I said, "Well," and I said, "Well, I can make scrambled eggs." Anyway, but that was just the way he talked. He talked like that, but inside he was good as gold. And so he took us around. He introduced me to Lou Adler. I auditioned live for Lou Adler on the old upright piano that had been in Carole King's writing room in New York.
Hmm.
My hands were shaking like crazy. Lou Adler paid for some demos. He didn't sign me at that time. Kim Fowley took me around, but what really made a difference in my life, I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and being from Oklahoma, I just smiled and said hi, to everybody. And it was the hippie movement had just sort of passed through LA. So young people were still sort of friendly and
Hmm.
saying hi to each other. And this cute guy walked by, and he did a double take, and I said, "Well, hi, I'm Becky Hobbs," and he said, "I'm Tornado Warren." His name was Tornado Warren, and to this day, I don't know his last name. If anybody out there knows who Tornado Warren was, let me know. Anyway, he said, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a singer-songwriter." And he said, "Oh, you write songs?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you have them on cassette?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you have any songs for Helen Reddy?"
Hmm.
I mean, how lucky can you get? And I said, "Boy, do I." So the next week, I made up a little cassette of songs for Helen Reddy, and a couple of them Louis Anderson and I wrote together. Some of them I wrote by myself. And he said that he was working for Ron de Blasio, who shared an office with Jeff Wald, who was Helen Reddy's husband. So I took my little cassette up there and gave it to Jeff Wald, and everybody was really nice. And the next week, I got a call, and Helen Reddy, that was our first big cut. She cut "I'll Be Your Audience," and it was on her Free and Easy album. Lewis and I wrote it, her Free and Easy album, and also Live at the Palladium. And then after that, she cut. Let's see. I don't know why I love that guy that I wrote by myself, and then Long Distance Love when Kim Fowley produced her, like in
Mhm.
the next year or two. And then I Can't Say Goodbye to You, which did well for her. It also did well for me. It won first place easy listening in the American Song Festival in, I forget what year it was, but I was still in LA. It might have been 1979 or something like that.
So
So
what
Helen Reddy
was
was so good to me.
so the impetus for you guys moving to LA was essentially Kim Fowley, or like what was the reason ultimately why you and Lewis decided to go?
Okay, we there were friends, of his and that I had met briefly from Baton Rouge that were out there doing well,
Okay.
that got gigs with big people,
Mhm.
and that knew people. And, so I think we both Lewis, as a songwriter, was more advanced than I was at the time. He was just a natural, he wound up, he wrote Whatever Happened to Old Fashioned Love, that was a big hit for BJ Thomas, and he had a whole bunch of cuts. He was BMI Songwriter of the Year one year. He was a natural writer. Now, I would hear the melodies in my head. I had to work to hone the lyrics.
Mhm.
That was my challenge when I first started writing, is really, get a good hook and support the hook, and not have throwaway lines, "I love you, baby," or something that
Mm.
you've heard a million times. But that we did not know, we didn't meet Kim until, we called him after we got there. But we just knew that a lot of people from Louisiana and Oklahoma, of course, had tons of people that went out to LA. And of course, I've been a Leon Russell fan ever since I knew who he was. The year I went to Tulsa University was the year that Mad Dogs and Englishmen played at the old Bradley Theater in Tulsa. So when I was a freshman at Tulsa University, I was there seeing Leon Russell and, oh my, Rita Coolidge and
Mhm.
uh,
I just find
Claudia.
it all interesting knowing where you ended up because you're such a staple in Nashville and you grew up in the South, and so obviously you have the rock and roll roots. So I'm assuming at this time, like Nashville's not even on the forefront of your knowledge. You're trying to be a rocker, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right. And Oklahoma's more of the Midwest than the South. But
that's
yeah,
true.
but of
Yeah, that
course,
is true.
yeah, so Midwest, and then, of course, going to Baton Rouge, that's the South.
Yeah.
And then LA was like, I loved the hippie movement. I loved all the mamas and the papas and the birds and all those great songs. Um, uh, so it just seemed like, yeah, that's the land of, milk and honey.
Yeah.
And I was out in LA for 9 years, and I loved my years in LA. I was out there when the urban cowboy craze came in, and I wound up playing at every honky tonk in that area. And believe me, at that time there were lots of honky tonks.
Mhm.
I played the Palomino, the Ranch in Garden Grove, the Roundup in Chatsworth, Crazy Horse down in Santa Ana. Tons of country venues out there,
Okay.
and some of them had the San Juan. Oh, I can't remember the one in San Juan in Capistrano. I can't remember the one there, but just all kinds of some that have been there for a long time.